Well, there you are. Again, Charlie Greer podcast today. So, did Nikki Sixx play on Motley Crue albums? Question mark. Perhaps he did. Perhaps not. Before we do, please like, share, and subscribe if you want to support the channel. The information's in the description for Cash App. My handle is Charlie Greer Podcast. Again, Cash App, Charlie Greer Podcast. Let's do this. So, did Nikki Sixx play bass on the albums? I've heard forever that he couldn't play, but then again, it's like he's listed as writing all those songs. And then when you find, I was in bands. Okay, I've wrote a song or two, and then you realize how things are, how record contracts are set up, and publishing deals, and this, that, and the other. Well, maybe he didn't. Maybe he because they're in a lawsuit now. The original guitarist Mick Mars is suing Motley Crue. This is old hat, but there's people are saying that he did. Bob Rock, their longtime producer, came out and said that Nikki told him that he didn't play on the first 4 albums. Let me start off by saying I love Motley Crue. I love those first 2 albums. After that they kind of, But those first 2 albums are amazing. And I was disappointed when I saw Motley Crue live back in the day. I saw the Girls tour twice. Saw Guns N' Roses up for them, and then I saw Whitesnake. And Guns N' Roses and Motley Crue, that was one of the best concerts I ever saw. Whitesnake and Motley Crue, it was one of the worst. I don't know. I'm just not a Whitesnake fan. And the energy and the vibe. Guns N' Roses and Motley Crue, shit, that would... Amazing. The band Motley Crue were good live, but sounded nothing like their albums. And also by then, I was like, what? In my teens? I'd been to a lot of concerts. Just the guitar tones and their sound was like, what the? I was like, what is this? Again, I was a huge Motley Crue fan. Hot black coffee. So did he play bass? And Mick has sued and saying that he didn't even play a note on that stadium tour last summer. And I can tell you, man, I did a review last summer about they were playing to a click, or it was a click track. The singer was singing, fake vocals everywhere, no bass. The drums were overlaid. He was playing along with the click track. Mick says their guitarist, he was the only one playing fully live. He's the only one that I met in real life, and he was a son of a bitch to me. He was one of the worst people, but I like his playing, and I'll get into all that. But and then Mick's friend Carmine Appice, who's like a legendary drummer, came out and said that Carol Kay played on the albums. Is that her name, Carol Kay? Anywho's she's a legendary bass player. She's played on all kinds of stuff. And look, pulling people in to do it in your album, especially in the 80s, like to play, that's no big deal. Like everybody did that. But I'd heard that Nikki Sixx couldn't play shit. He was horrible. But you're going to ask yourself, then why? How could he write these songs? So let's get into that first, songwriting and a record contract. So when you sign a major label record contract, I don't know how it is today, but back in the day, there was a principal on the contract. Most of the time, they wanted to deal with one person. He was the principal. You're the one signed. Everybody else is just an employee. Led Zeppelin, it was Jimmy Page's band. There's pictures of him signing with Atlantic Records. It's just him and his manager sitting there. The other guys are just paid employees. And Led Zeppelin plagiarized like every bluesman alive. A lot of those, it breaks my heart because I'm a Led Zeppelin fan. But man, they just stole like wholesale amounts. So the principal on the record contract. It's Nikki's band. It was his, so he's the principal on the record contract. So when you sign and you become what they do, what happens is, and again, this is assumption, speculation, because I don't know exactly what they did, but this is what I had learned through being in bands and stuff. Depending on the documents you signed, contracts you signed, your name and your entity is turned into an LLC, a limited liability corporation. Yeah, you're that dude, but it's your name and your image and stuff is basically owned. So it's a corporation. So they can say written by Nikki Sixx, and it could have been 10 writers, you know. Elvis, the same thing. Every song you saw on Elvis, it would say written by Elvis Presley or written by Elvis Presley and another writer or whoever writers. Everybody thought he was a great songwriter. It wasn't until after he was dead, everybody's like, no, we just put his name on there so it would sell more records. Elvis never wrote a fucking song. He didn't know how to write shit. So you become a product. And Nikki was more like, back in the day, he was more, he was more of the fad, the fashion, the this and that and the other thing. Who cares if he could play? We'll get somebody to, So let's just speculate. Nikki's the one guy that signed the label. I mean, that signed the contract. He's the principal of the contract. Because a lot of bands will be like, oh, we split it 4 ways. Maybe they do. But as far as the publishing, see, they might have, so there's different entities. There's the publishing is who writes the music. And then the band, you can split 4 ways, like album sales and merch and this, that, and the other. But the publishing, it's always been well known that he owns all that publishing. So that's where the money is. That's where you get like a nickel a play, and you get advances for your songwriting. The name, say a name, then that is a corporation. Anybody could write, and you slap that name on there, and then people will be ghostwriters. Because there's no way. If he didn't play on these albums, how did he write these songs? And ask yourself that. If he can't play shit, then how's he writing all these songs? Perhaps he didn't write these songs. Perhaps Nikki Sixx is, had writers. Or, there's a lot of, if you listen to some of those songs now that there's, and I knew this back in the day, you take here, a lot of people will do that. I never was like, of course, when you're starting to write, everybody nicks from somebody. You take a little bit of here, but you don't like steal, okay? Some bands do. Look up Sweet Child of Mine, Guns N' Roses, and the Australian band. I got to say too much, but man, they just took that song and wrote lyrics over it. And the band from Australia was like, we knew they did it. We tried to do something, and they sent like 100 lawyers on us. And we were threatening stuff. They kept their mouth shut. Nirvana, they settled out of court with it's just a thing. That's how you do it. I mean, it's all con men in the music industry anyways. They love a thief, okay? An intellectual property thief. See, it's your intellectual property that they're stealing. So let's just say that like Mick could write a tune. He's listed as those on those songs. Could it be, this is speculation, assumption, could it be that if you add Nikki, he's the principal, they'll get more money. He'll get paid more if they say that Nikki did it. And of course, Motley Crue has used ghostwriters. Not to bust anybody's bubble, but man, they had Bryan Adams writing songs, okay? Bryan Adams can write a pretty good song. He wrote, Bryan Adams wrote for everybody. He wrote for Kiss. He wrote for Motley Crue. He wrote for everybody, man. It's just that's what you do. Especially back then, it was a system they had. They didn't have a single or something. A lot of times you won't hear about this stuff till the band is gone or passed, and you hear all this like, what? Like Elvis, like they're like, Elvis is the greatest songwriter. He never wrote a song. They just put his name on there to get more publishing, get more money. If it said Elvis Presley was shit, they'd get like a king's ransom. So, did he play on these albums? Bob Rock said he didn't. Bob Rock said that Nikki told him, like the story goes like, oh, I think someone came in later while I wasn't in the studio and played over it. And Carol Kay probably has played on more albums than anybody. She's a great bassist. That's someone you'd call back in the day, anyways, to like, hey, we need somebody to come in here, and And I don't get it. If you're not a musician, the bass guitar is one of the simplest instruments to play. It's the first four strings of guitar. You're single noting the unless you're doing like Geddy Lee or whatever. When I would record my albums, I usually played bass on my albums. I play guitar and bass. I played my first band. I switched to bass so I could join the band. I would knock out the bass tracks in like 2 hours. One session, boom, done. The bass is done, over dubbing, everything, slide, whatever the fuck. And to hear these stories, over the years, interviews with like Tom Werman, Bob Rock, where it took weeks to get Nikki Sixx to play his bass. Like what? And those Motley Crue bass lines, for one, the bass is buried in the mix. They're monkey simple. It's not like, again, like he's doing like, John Entwistle lick. No, he's just playing, he's root noting the fucking song. It's so he couldn't play. Then he's come out and said, yeah, I've been playing bass he's taking bass lessons for the last 5 years. What? Bass lessons? You're this legendary bassist. You've wrote all these songs. Why do you need to take bass lessons? Does that make any sense? Unless he's the Sid Vicious of hard rock or whatever the hell. He's just a, good looking cat with, style and flair. And we get other people to. Forgot the guy's name, but he's a stylist and he worked with a lot of rock bands. That Motley Crue look was, created. None of those dudes had anything to do with that. What is his name? He's credited on like the first, or I know he's credited on Shout the Devil. God, what's his name? Anyway, and he's worked with a lot of bands too. He'll take a band and get them in, here or there. Kiss also. Gene Simmons didn't come up with Fire Breathing. His management did that. That whole look and this, that, and the other, that was all created. I hate to burst people's bubble. I love Kiss. I love Motley Crue, but this is how it is. It's show business. It's the music industry. You hire other people to, and back in the day, record labels had a lot more going on. They had divisions of this and that and the other thing, and they could get you, come on. They had staff writers that just work on salary. They'll never be credited for anything. There's BMI and ASCAP. They have people that they just give publishing deals to that just write tunes. And then they're given advances, and then they have to give up those songs, and then they might get like a little bit of a royalty, but it depends on if it's a buyout. If it's a buyout, they're ghostwriting. They're not going to get any credit. They got their money, done. I think that Mick Mars probably got tired of he's an old man now. He's probably seeing how much money others are getting in the band or whatever, being treated like, he's got that illness where his bones are like fusing together. He probably got tired of it. He probably was embarrassed because, man, that stadium tour, which was like Joan Jett, Poison, Motley Crue, and Def Leppard, I saw some of that footage, and I couldn't believe how many backing tracks were going on with Motley Crue. Yeah, he's singing over, not even doing a great job of singing. Again, I'm a Motley Crue fan, but it's just like, come on, And now they're trying to get an arbitration, which is behind closed doors. Mick Mars, the guitarist who's suing them, wants to have it in court. He wants to bring all this stuff to light. That ain't gonna happen. Okay. Arbitration it's behind closed doors. It's sealed. They're probably gonna settle with him anyways. Because it was in open court, you'd hear all this stuff. People would, and most of the time, honestly, most like just a casual fan wouldn't care. They just want to go see Motley Crue and hear girls, 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 and have, get my Bud and then Bud Light, whatever, and drink and have fun. I get that. And so I met Mick Mars. Okay. I like Mick Mars. I'm a fan of his guitar playing. I think he's an underrated guitarist. Um, and I talked about this in a previous podcast about a year ago. So how I met Mick Mars. I used to manage a coffee shop restaurant on Sunset, right in Guitar Gulch there. On Sunset, Guitar Gulch, they called it that because it's got Guitar Center, Sam Ash. It used to have Mesa Boogie, Carvin, all these used guitar play. It is awesome. Now it's probably a ghost town. Um, so I managed the Abbott's Habit. And on the same side of the street, we were across the street from Guitar Center, kind of across the street, kind of catty corner down a bit. On the same side of our street, you cross Bonita, one of the side streets, and we were like, let me see, 1, 2, 3. We were like 4 doors down from on the same side of the street of Sunset as Sunset Strip Tattoo. And the Jefe, the main tattooist guy back then, anyways, I'm not going to say his name. I did, or I don't want to. Anyway, he had tattooed Motley Crue. I mean, he's tattooed them. Shit. They'd take him on tour. He was a cool dude. He would come in and get his coffee and get his sandwiches or whatever. And I got to know him, and I knew who he was. He always a big tipper. So once I got to know him, we'd talk a bit. He would. When I'd see him, I'd get his stuff ready. I knew what he wanted. So if I saw him in line, I would, he didn't want to be any special treatment, but he was a guy in the neighborhood, and we became friendly. We got to the point where he'd come in when it was dead and he would sit at the table closest to the counter. Him and I would have like conversations. He would I'd ask him the damnedest shit. You would not believe what he told me. So I get a call at the restaurant. Hey, so-and-so at Sunset Strip Tattoo wants to order. It was a big order. They didn't tell me anything. They said, look, they want you to deliver it. Don't send one of the other people. Okay. So sandwiches and espressos or whatever the hell coffee, it was a bunch. So I get it ready. I walk down the Sunset Strip Tattoo and they're like, oh yeah, okay, just going back. He had his own room in the back of the tattoo parlor. And I get back there and I announce myself. There's like a door and it's like, hey, it's Charlie from Abbott's Habit. I got the food. He's like, oh, Charlie, yeah, come on in. So when I come in, he had just tattooed Mick Mars. So he's taping up. After a tattoo, they'll put some kind of bandage or plastic over it and tape it or whatever. And Mick's standing there. And I walk in and man, he explodes on me. It's so loud. Chicken faced. He's got 2 Hesher, not bodyguards, but like hangers on, like Crue or something, like, road crew dudes or something like that. They're like, coming at me. And the tattoo guy's like, no, this is Charlie. He brought the food. And man, Mick wouldn't have it. How dare you? And then I was like, you know what? Go fuck yourself. I almost took it away. I was just like, no, I'm not putting up with it. Especially back then. I was like, man, fuck you. I mean, I'm a fan of Mick Mars. But dude, you don't come at me, especially back then. I wasn't taking any of that, dude. No. So, whoa. And these guys, and they were like, we kick his ass, Mick. And I was like, so they calmed it down. And I was pissed. And the tattoo guy apologized right in front of Mick and these 2 bodyguards, if you will. And Mick was just, this like, again, one of the worst experiences I've had with a celebrity, if you want to call him a celebrity. Like I didn't do anything. I'm doing them a favor. We didn't even deliver. You know what I mean? Like we didn't ever do, it was just it was a friendly thing because the tattoo artist was, our friend. And we, he didn't tell me it was Mick Mars. I didn't fucking know, So I was like, yeah, I get the food. And then he gave me a really big tip. And I just remember looking at Mick like, dude, you little munchkin motherfucker. And you're like, Herman Munster boots. And those 2 Heshers that think that they're, I was pissed. And then, so I get back to the restaurant and the tattoo artist calls me. He's like, man, I'm so sorry. I didn't know he'd react that way. You were asked in. I mean, I announced myself. I didn't waltz on in. Matter of fact, I had to go to a couple layers of not security, but like go into the tattoo parlor. They knew me there. Oh yeah, hey Charlie, I'm here for so. Oh yeah, okay, hold on, let me page him. Yeah, it's fine. Then I had to go through one door, get back there. Same thing. Oh, yeah, here. Okay, come on in. You know, I didn't like peacock in there like a, so I got picked at the restaurant. He's apologized. I'm so sorry. Like, yeah, he's kind of like that. He's a grumpy old man. Yeah, whatever, man. I told him, I was like, man, I'm a big fan. Like so a little while later, uh, it was like it wasn't too busy. There's people in there, but you get rushes at a place like this. Like you get the morning rush, noon rush, dinner. Anyway, it was between one of the rushes. Not many people in. Who's come strolling in again? But Mick Mars and these two, friggin' bodyguards or whoever they are. Because guess why? Because they liked the food and the coffees and stuff, and it was awesome. We had some. It was just a bomb, right? They wanted more. Obviously, they knew it was me. I don't know what they thought. And he comes up, walked up, and goes, "Oh, it's you." And I thought he was kind of joking, like, I was like, "Man, what the hey, It's like what, I'm a working man here. You know what I mean? I was in a band at the time. I didn't say any of that. I did tell him, I was like, dude, I'm a fan. Like, come on, what the, Yeah, well, he kind of like, yeah, well, see, I love the stuff. Yeah, he shouldn't have. It's like, man, he was grumpy. He looked insane. I don't know if you know people's eyes, like how they look, just like darting around. Like, I don't know if he was on. Who knows? Rude, just entitled, douchebag, basically. And then they got their stuff and like left. They got a bunch of stuff to go. Again, it was a really good stuff. Never apologized. They did tip me though. He gave me a tip, and he says, yeah. I was like, fine, okay, that's who you are. So, maybe he was grumpy because of the shit he's dealing with the stress of being in Motley Crue. Who knows? He's suing them now. It is a drag. I wouldn't say he was a hero of mine, but somebody I looked up to be, pardon me, so douchey and also aggressive. And it's like, okay, this is how it is, man. Law of the jungle kind of thing. You have to have something to back you. I know you got your two security guards there, but your little 100-pound crippled ass, huh? And your two heshers are you're in danger. How I was back then. Like that would have been no big deal for me. I mean, and I'm trying. I'm not a tough guy. I mean, I've meddled out, but man, that would have been nothing. I'd have been like, what the fuck, And they kind of saw that when I was, how I reacted to them. Like I ain't the one. That's why I was the manager of the place on Sunset. You just can't waltz on in and manage a place on Sunset. You're dealing with homeless people, gangbangers, this, that, and the other. Huh? It's like, buy the ticket and take a ride kind of thing. I didn't give a fuck by then. I'm glad I changed. Thank God I've mellowed out. I'm not, this, and those days are long gone. This was probably 2005, maybe. It's almost like 20 years ago. I don't know. But it's not like, I ain't the one kind of thing. Like I ain't the one to be, I'm doing you a favor, douchebag, and your hillbilly security or whoever they are. He said, sycophants, But he's suing Motley Crue. God bless Mick Mars. He's suing Motley Crue, and I guess he told Carmine a piece that because Carmine said he talked to Mick, and Carmine said that Carol Kay played on the bass on the first 4 albums, I guess. And then Bob Rock is the one that first came out and said, "Oh yeah, Nikki told me that he didn't play on the first 4 albums. Somebody came in." Then once that kind of popped off, Bob Rock started backtracking. Well, no. See, he might have. And he was like, when I first worked with him, I think it was the Dr. Feelgood album. He could play bass, but he threw some shade. He goes, I had to piece it all together, and it took a while. And piece it all together, edit together. Like he'd have to play, and this is bass guitar. We're just talking about the rhythm, like this bunga dunga, huh? You don't know 2s and 4s and 4s and 2, huh? So that to me is like suspicious. And also, you can't. How are you writing these songs? If you can't play bass, sure as fuck, you're not gonna play guitar. Guitar's a lot harder than bass, you know. I saw an interview with Kevin DuBrow, who was the singer of Quiet Riot, and this is back in the day, and he said that Nikki, before Motley Crue had, they were looking for a bass player. He came in and couldn't play. They're like, yeah, the song's in F. He's like, what's F? Where's it at? They're like, get the fuck out of here. They kicked him out. What's F? You don't even know your chords? Like, I mean, I know it's cool to be like punk rock and not know how to play Sid Vicious, woo, whatever. But come on. You got to have a little bit of elementary knowledge of your instrument to even fake it. And then Mick Mars is saying he didn't play one note live on the stadium tour. It's just all pantomime, you know. And I'm sure that he's not the only one. Okay, let me tell you, that's a thing. People are not they're playing to backing tracks and God knows what, you know. And they're making a shit ton of money. Again, people don't care. They're playing stadiums, for Christ's sake. Right now, they're in Europe playing stadiums. And to me, my humble opinion, my ear hears a backing track for that bass. I don't hear any bass. Because live bass sounds, you feel, when everything's like a pre-recorded track, it's all mixed together. It just doesn't have that thump. A bass should be thumping that bomb, bomb, you know. I didn't hear that. Again, I'm a fan. And I had, you know, of course, I had to deal with Mick Mars' grumpy ass back in the day, you know. Maybe he was having a bad day. Who knows? What do you think? Comment below. Nikki could be, again, this is not unusual for someone to be the star and then have a team of people behind them, stylists, songwriters, everything, cooks, just telling you what to do. You're like a piece of clay they're molding. That's how it is. You know, once you sign that contract, it's depending on the contract, but they own you. You are a puppet. You're told what to do. You have itineraries. You have this and that and the other. You can't, you know, and on tour, if you're sick, well, they just give you shots of B12 and God knows what steroids and everything, get you up there. You know, they travel with doctors and chiropractors, especially at that level. Shit. You're so pumped full of fucking, you know, suppositories that have like, it's a thing. It's routine, actually. It's not even a, you know, only like underground, lower level punk rock, whatever. They, you know, you go see a band in a club. Some of them will use samples, but I've never, well, for one, when I played, I never even used a pedal. I would just, well, when I was in Love Engineer, I was a singer. And we didn't have any, it was just live, loud as fuck, Marshall stacks and this, that, and the other thing. Of course, we had like smoke machines and rain lights. We had a light show, you know. But then when I went solo and did my thing, again, man, I was doing like 3-chord rock and roll, cow punk, you know, punk. It was never used any pedals. I went straight to my guitar, to the amp, which sometimes is not the best thing to do. You'd rather go through a power conditioner like thing because everything is different. The voltage and all these different buildings, it'll sound different. I've blown up a bunch of amps. I mean, it's just, you know, I've blown up PA system, you know, or speakers, I should say. I shouldn't blew speakers out. But that's what I did. And I never got to the point of, I never toured in a tour bus. I never, in fact, I've never, like properly toured. I just did the, lowbrow, you know, in LA, I didn't even have a van. It was a lot of times guys we just meet at the show, you know what I mean? Like, we wouldn't even, because you could pretty much play around LA County, Orange County, this, that, and the other. I mean, you could play every night if you wanted to. There's so many places to play. And I was a hard, you know, I like a low down rock and roller, drinking and, you know, again, my songs were like monkey simple, but at least it was me. And I usually had a 3-piece. I play guitar and sang, bass player, drummer, boom. If there's any mistakes, it's kind of, and I'll be the first to admit it. Sometimes when I was on, it was good. when I was off, it was fucking horrible. So there's some people that see me like, dude, he sucks. And others are like, man, they are great. You have good nights, bad nights. It's what it is. But comment below, do you think that he'd played? See, I think this all came out after Mick Mars threw that lawsuit at him. It's almost like they're spoon feeding people to get ready for the, kind of lighten the shock of, a lot of bands don't play live. It's live. Yeah, they're prancing around, but it's a pre-recorded tape. That used to, matter of fact, Milli Vanilli, that band in the 80s, girl, it's true. That's not even them singing on the album. They are just a couple models they hired to pantomime, like lip sync. They got a Grammy. They had to turn it. They had to get back the Grammy. Like it ruined their career. Now everybody, that's all they do. Everybody lip syncs. Everybody is not everybody, but most of them are out there playing recorded tracks, lip syncing. It's a thing. It's the norm now. Record labels don't have any divisions anymore. I doubt if they have staff writers. It's all ran by what I've heard is the accountants run record labels. And a lot of these old school record label guys have gotten into like military industrial business. Huh? What? Maybe the money's better. Who knows? But yeah, I have a feeling, my humble opinion, my assumption, my speculation is he didn't play on those albums. Nikki Sixx didn't play on those albums. Carol K or whoever came in is like, well, I mean, and probably did it in an hour. The whole fucking album. Just, this is easy, dude. Well, don't play too good, Carol, because you got to dumb it down a bit. Again, I'm a fan. The first album, Too Fast for Love, and Shout at the Devil, I love those albums. I still listen to them to this day. Great memories. I was disappointed when Theater of Pain came out, the Motley Crue album. I was just like, what the fuck is it? What do they look like? What is this? But that happens. And of course, they got bigger than ever. You want a softer radio, ballads, and I get it, But yeah, I think that's true. I think he didn't play a note. I think Mick Mars is telling the truth. I think he didn't play a note on that stadium tour. They were playing the backing tracks. He didn't play on those first 4 albums. He's a corporate entity. So within that, they will have a team behind them of just do whatever's got to be done kind of thing. That's just my opinion. I'm going to side with Grumpy Mick Mars on this. What do you think? Do you even care? Do you even care? Perhaps you do. Perhaps you don't. But yeah, I love Motley Crue. God bless them. I hope that they keep on. They've got new music coming out. Good. Hopefully it's not AI generated. Let's sample this, and then the singer's voice, and then we'll take him from the 80s, and then they can do that now. They can sample like when he was singing good, and now turn it into and just type in the word. What? That's a thing, and that's coming. If it's not already, What do you think? Comment below. Again, please like, share, and subscribe. If you want to support the channel, the information's in the description for my Cash App, Charlie Greer Podcast. That's right. But I'm out of here. I love y'all. Be blessed. Cheers.